my dirty secret that I've not had a backup for 10 years of having my own computer.
You're an adult now.
I am a grown up now. So, yeah, let's just talk about that. That's my secret. I've been hiding that I haven't had a backup or a proper backup for, well, all of my adult life.
You've got Dropbox though, right?
Yeah, I've got Dropbox. That backs
Do you
up.
keep most? Does that have most of your stuff in it?
Yeah, to be fair, that does have like the most important stuff. But things like my iTunes music and some like side project stuff that I'm working on is in a folder outside of Dropbox. That stuff's never backed up really, unless the code gets pushed to GitHub sometimes.
Right. Well, and Dropbox really isn't a backup anyway, except I guess to the extent that it's on other Macs that you might have somewhere else, like at work or a second. How many Macs do you have?
In the house, 3.
Okay.
And I think 2 of them have Dropbox on. So my laptop and the Mac Mini in the living room, that's got Dropbox as well. But that's not really a proper backup, because if I delete something on this computer, that's just going to disappear from the Mac Mini anyway.
Right, exactly.
I finally signed up to Backblaze after hearing about it everywhere.
Is it still backing up your machine at this point?
No, it's done.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I kept leaving it overnight. Just left the laptop on, turned up the throttle into maximum, let it do whatever it wanted. It's taken about 3 days, but it's all done now.
Oh, that's good. I have over a terabyte backed up on Backblaze on our iMac, because it's got a hard drive hanging off of it that has all the iTunes and photo media on it from the whole family. So that took a long time when it originally did it, because our upload speeds are not nearly as good as download speeds. So it took a very long time, but it's been years ago now. And once you get that big chunk all the way finished, it's all incremental after that, and it just kind of does it in the background. You don't really notice. Yeah,
it's great. I've got 100, I think it's taken 146 gig off my MacBook, which is about right. But I'm probably going to pay for it again for the Mac Mini, which is in the living room, and back up everything that's on there as well, as you say, like media and photos and things like that are all put on there. Because it's like $50 for a year. I think you can save a bit more if you pay for 2. It's great.
Yeah, it's really good. I ended up doing it with both my 2 older boys' laptops too, just because, especially with laptops, Time Machine is good, but Time Machine can take a while, and sometimes it gets really behind if you're not using your laptop a lot. And for whatever reason, Backblaze seems to keep up a little better in my experience.
Yeah, especially like this week where, obviously I've started it, but I'm still using the computer, and I'm changing files and adding stuff, and I can see it keeping track of all that, and it, I haven't had any errors, no problems at all. There's a couple of weird things with like the preferences pane. So initially I turned it off to not back up when I was on battery.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was on battery and it said your backup is paused. And I'm thinking, what? Why is it paused? Why is it not backing up? But it doesn't tell you why it's paused. And you kind of get the pause backup button, but that's actually disabled, or the resume one, because you're doing incremental backup, and it's not immediately obvious why it's been paused.
Oh, all right. That's interesting.
That's my own fault, because I turned off battery backup. But there's a couple of little weirdnesses, as I say, with the app. But other than that, I'm just happy that it's all backed up, and I know I'm not going to lose anything.
Well, now that you've got the first backup done, I would think you'd probably be okay backing up on battery. It will use some power, but it runs in the background pretty seamlessly. The best thing about Backblaze for me is that you eventually just forget it's even there, and every now and then I'll get there. I think they send a weekly email that says what the status of all your drives is, and it's always 100% backed up. I've never really had looked at that and thought, oh no, this hasn't backed up in the last 3 days. So it pretty much is set it and forget it once you get past that initial stage.
And what kind of caused me to download it was I'd spent some time sorting out some albums and stuff in iTunes that weren't bought from iTunes. So I've got some I've got like the soundtrack ripped from Grand Theft Auto 3 and Vice City, I think. With all the radio ads and everything from the games, and
right.
I kind of spent some time sorting those out, and had to make some covers for them because covers don't exist for some of them. And then I was like, but if I lose my computer, like, it's all well and good that I've got these files, or I can re-download them again if I needed to. But I was like, I really should just back this up, and then I don't have to worry about it. And that was kind of what caused me to go, do you know what, I really should be a grown-up and get a backup.
Yeah. No, that's a good idea. I mean, I use Time Machine too, and I have at times used Super Duper with hard drives dangling off of computers. It's kind of a pain when you're dealing with laptops, so I'm not as good about using Super Duper with those. We have a family iMac, and here's one that I'm just waiting for it to die. And the good thing is that it is backed up. The files are backed up. The content is backed up to Backblaze, but it's one of those early iMacs that wasn't a Fusion drive. It had an SSD and a hard drive in it, but they weren't combined as a single volume using the Fusion drive system on OS X. So I use that little trick where you can make your own Fusion drive in the terminal, which works fine, except that now Super Duper won't back up the hard drive, and it gives me all sorts of scary messages about how there's something wrong with my hard drive. But the computer's been running perfectly for the last 2 years since then anyway, but there's no way for me to back it up to do like a clone drive. So I'm waiting for something terrible to happen there. Hopefully, though, since I've got basically all the media, things like family photos and music and all that stuff is on a separate hard drive, not on the machine's drive, and all of it is also backed up. That hopefully that won't be a problem. But I am kind of flirting with disaster there a little bit myself.
Yeah, so your iMac sounds a lot like mine. I had to replace the hard drive in it. It was kind of out of warranty, and Apple wanted like 350 quid to replace it. And so, I ordered a hard drive, and I don't know if you've ever taken an iMac apart.
No, I have. You took it apart yourself?
It's terrifying.
I know. You got to use suction cups to get the glass off, right?
I went and bought a plunger and just used that.
That's great.
But yeah, and what I didn't realize at the time was Apple's hard drive actually has like a temperature sensor on them, which is proprietary just for the iMacs.
Oh.
So the new hard drive I put in was great, except when you started it up, the computer thought that it was too hot, so the fans would run constantly.
Oh, because it doesn't have the sensor on it. Exactly.
So then there's an app which I've run on the iMac, which manages the fan and the temperature. Because it's just kind of sat there and it works fine right now, and I'm just gonna leave it, and if it breaks, then so be it.
Yeah. Oh man, that does sound kind of scary. Well, I don't know. I mean, are you done with desktop computers? Because I feel like I'm kind of done with desktop computers.
I mean, yeah, I think so. I've got the Mac Mini, but that's more of a kind of home server than anything else.
Yeah.
That really could be anything, to be honest. It could be a Raspberry Pi if I could get it to do what I want it to do. But yeah, I can't see myself buying a desktop computer again because, I mean, firstly, like this laptop, I use it at home, but I also take it to work, and I work from it.
Right.
And I guess I could have a separate one at work, which would just be my work computer, but then I've got to worry, like, if I install stuff, tools and all sorts of stuff, I've got to kind of try and keep that in sync, or, make sure I do the same stuff at work that I do at home, and it would just be too much hassle to have two different computers, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the reason I feel that way is because I'm working from so many different locations all the time. I think that has a lot to do with it. And what I don't have, which I would like, is to have a large external monitor where I could, if I'm coding or something, I can have like 25 plus inch screen to kind of look at Xcode on all the time. But I don't have that, and I'd like to do that at some point. But I do, I'm recording this from the basement. A lot of times I'm sitting on the couch. Sometimes I'm in a coffee shop. I mean, for me, it just makes a lot of sense to have a laptop.
Yeah, and I mean, at work, I've got a 27-inch Dell monitor, as well as I guess it's probably 21-inch next to that as well. So I've got two monitors plus the monitor on the MacBook. So I have the three 3 monitor setup when I'm at work, which is great because it's basically a desktop at that point. But then at home, I don't have any monitors or anything like that. I just use the laptop as is.
Yeah, well, this is, kind of leading into what we were planning to talk about in a minute. We had another little topic in here, but I think we're going to skip that for the moment. I mean, we were going to talk a little bit about what our setups kind of are, and how we get things done. And so what exactly is kind of your home setup versus your work setup when you're working on your Macs?
Yeah, so my home, I mean, like right now when I'm recording, I've got a desk in the spare room with my microphone arm and the microphone, and it's got the charger and all the cables and stuff up here. So this is where I do podcasting with you, and if I really needed to kind of sit down and properly concentrate, this is where I'd sit. But generally when I'm at home, for the most part, I'll just maybe sit in the living room or in the dining room or something. I don't really have what you'd call a proper setup at home. I do in my Lego room. That's where the terrifying dying iMac is.
Okay.
So I use that up there for watching movies or listening to music, that kind of stuff. And that's on a big desk, but obviously it's an iMac, so it's all kind of built in as one. But yeah, I don't use that all too much.
I just thought that maybe you're the guy who was climbing the Trump Tower in New York the other day, since you've got that plunger. So you're the guy with the suction cups, weren't you?
Oh, yeah, that was definitely me, yeah.
You saw that, didn't you?
I did.
They got over 100,000 people on Periscope.
That's amazing. I think that's more than the puddle. You remember the puddle?
Yeah, I do remember the puddle. Where was that, in Bristol or somewhere?
Yeah, I think it was somewhere around there.
That was, for people who don't listen, how long ago did we talk about that? Probably 6 months ago.
Yeah,
probably. It was a rainy day, and I think it was Bristol. There was a big puddle right near the I forget, we're near the underground or something.
Yeah, there was like an underground that went underneath a main road, and you could see the puddle from some web agency's office.
Right. And so people were having a hard time getting around this puddle, and they started broadcasting it, and it got a lot of the whole world was watching the puddle for a while there.
There we go. It was in Newcastle,
Newcastle.
Just to clarify that. I just checked. It was 20,000 people watched the puddle. So the guy climbing Trump Tower was even more so.
Yeah, they ended up breaking windows to pull the guy inside the building.
Crazy.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was a little bit of a detour, but no, it sounds like my setup is kind of similar to yours because I don't really work from any one particular place. In the mornings when I first get up, I usually work in the kitchen while I have a little coffee and breakfast at the kitchen table or whatever. In the evenings, a lot of times I'm on the couch in the front room of our house. When I'm podcasting, I'm down here in the basement. But I also will work from the local Starbucks or various places in downtown Chicago, which is why I like having my MacBook Pro.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like we've kind of got the same thing, that like at least, with a MacBook you can just get up and go and work wherever you want, but, it's nice to add extra things like a nice desk or, for me, monitors at work, because, I couldn't work off this, just the one MacBook screen for, 40 hours a week.
Yeah. Well, and I guess the one difference between the way the two of us work is that actually I don't take my MacBook that often downtown. I usually have my iPad Pro with me because during the day when I can catch a few minutes here and there, when I'm like taking a break at lunch or something like that, or I'm on the train, I use my iPad Pro to write for Mac Stories usually because there's just not a big enough chunk of time during the workday to get any programming done. So the MacBook Pro, the iPad Pro is a lot better alternative because it's so much lighter than this 15-inch Retina MacBook Pro.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so that works out really well for me. What else? I wanted to ask you too about what do you listen to music while you're doing your work?
Yeah, pretty much from the moment I get in. Well, maybe the first half an hour while I'm waking up. I don't listen to anything. But yeah, pretty much the whole day I'm listening to music. And generally, I don't really care whether it's like, soundtracks, like lyrics, without lyrics, or, normal just music with lyrics or anything. I kind of listen to just whatever I feel like. It tends to not affect me too much, even if there's lyrics and things like that. So,
How about like stuff you've already heard versus new music? Does that make a difference?
Not really. I tend to, every now and again I'll go, I'm bored of everything I've got. I'm just going to, I'll jump on the iTunes store. And normally I just click on like the albums for £5 and see what's there. And I'll just pick something up and, I listen to that for a few hours and then, jump back to something else. I mean, I've got a fairly big collection in iTunes anyway. So I never really run out of stuff to listen to or get bored.
Still buying music, are you?
I'm still, but I don't pay for a streaming service, so yeah, I still buy music.
All right. I've hardly bought any music in the last 2 or 3 years. And it's weird. It's a weird mix and it's one reason I'm on Apple Music, I guess, is because I've got a big collection from many years of buying. But I also stream, and it's nice to have those two things kind of combined in one app. Helps a lot. I mean, I know that that's not the only alternative for that kind of thing, but it works pretty well for me. I have, for me, music is kind of, sometimes it's a good thing to have, sometimes it's not. It's usually, I tend to do better work better when there's not lyrics. I'll also do the CGP Grey thing, and I'll pick one song and I'll listen to it endlessly for hours at a time until I just say, that's enough, and I throw it out. And I do that a lot lately. Like I will start when I get up at 5 a.m. listening to one thing, and it'll be the one thing that I listen to all the way through until I'm done with whatever I'm working on. Because it kind of takes me out of. I lose track of everything around me basically, and just focus on what I'm working on when I do that. So it works pretty well, but it's a good way to get sick of a lot of songs.
Yeah, I tend to, not with one song, but I will do it with an album sometimes. Like, I will just listen to the same album on repeat for 6-7 hours.
Yeah, I know I've been doing it a lot lately because I will open up Apple Music and I'll start a playlist, and then 10 minutes later think, this song keeps playing over and over, and I look, oh yeah, it's because I have it on repeat song, which is becoming a bit of a default, which is a little weird, but it works pretty well for me.
Yeah, and I do, on the mention of streaming services, although I don't go out of my way to pay for anything, I am a Prime member, so I have Prime Music. Is it called Prime Music?
How do you like that? Yeah, it's Prime Music. Do you like that?
It's all right. I mean, the selection is fine. It's not really been any better or worse for me than when I've looked at Spotify or Apple Music, really, but I guess that depends what I'm looking for. But their app is terrible. It's so confusing. I will use it occasionally if, like, I maybe just want to try out an album, or, I just want to maybe listen to something once but not buy it. I'll just open up Amazon Prime Music and see if it's there. And sometimes I'll just listen to stuff on YouTube if it doesn't exist in Prime Music, because I'm like, I'll just listen to it there, that'll be fine. Certainly if it's something I don't necessarily want to buy.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it. I mean, I actually have, I can't remember the last time I used Amazon Prime Music. I probably should take more advantage of what's offered with Prime, just because, I mean, other than the shipping stuff, I don't know. I don't really use that much. A little bit of the video. Trying to think what else. That's about it.
Yeah, Jess uses the lending library for Kindle.
Oh yeah.
That's a really nice feature. Like, she can just go on there, borrow a book, and she reads books really quickly. So, that can get an expensive hobby pretty quickly.
For sure. It's kind of buried. It's kind of buried, that feature, isn't it?
It's really difficult because you can't browse the Amazon site for things that are available in the lending library. You can only do it within a Kindle or on like a Kindle Fire, and I think on the iPad as well. Mm-hmm. So they kind of make it a little bit obscure to get to.
Yeah, that was my recollection too, because I have used that. And it always struck me as every time I went to go look for it, it was a little hard to find, because you're right, you can't just look up a book. And normally when you're on Amazon's site, it'll show you how much it costs to have it delivered to your house and how much it costs to just buy the Kindle version. But there's no third option for use the lending library, available on the lending library.
Yeah. Which, I mean, as I say, is fine for somebody like Jess, because she reads so many books that, she can pick any random book, she'll read it, and, it should be done in a day anyway, whether it's good or not. But for somebody like me, I maybe want to be more specific about what I'm looking for, and it's just very difficult to search.
Right. Yeah, that's what I found too. And it does have, it's pretty limited in terms of its selection, if I remember. At least in terms of kind of popular books. I mean, there's some, but tends to be like last time I looked, it was very popular books that were very popular maybe 5 years ago.
Yeah, definitely.
Once they're kind of played out in terms of sales.
Yeah. So I mentioned listening to music on YouTube, which, it's kind of a weird thing to do, but like I say, if I want to just listen to like one song that I don't have, I use that. But it kind of brings me on nicely to something called Bearded Spice, which is a very strange name. But this is a little Mac menu bar app, and it basically, like, when I open a YouTube link, it takes over, so the media keys then control the YouTube video.
That's
and
nice.
it doesn't have to be the frontmost tab either. So I can open it up, Bearded Spice takes over, and then my media keys will work for that video. It's really great. I mean, it has a huge list of sites that it supports. Amazon Music, Audible. You've got, I don't know, all sorts of stuff on here. Dailymotion, Google Music. I think Overcast is on this list. Obviously, the website Pocket Cast is on there. So it has this huge list of websites that it will pick up on and control. So it kind of makes it really nice that I don't have to worry about, if somebody comes over to talk to me, I don't have to go, let me just find the tab and pause this. I can just use the media keys like normal. And then when I close the YouTube video, it goes back to using iTunes again.
Oh, that's nice. What if there are multiple things open? Like, what if you have iTunes open and you've got a YouTube video going? Yeah,
so what it does, so that whatever the first application is that you open, so for me, that's iTunes, because that's kind of the first thing that's, it gets opened when I first get to work.
Right.
So that's being controlled, but then you open a YouTube video and it will automatically switch to that. But the menu bar, you can click on it and it will give you a list of all the available applications, or actually tabs, because you can do it over multiple YouTube videos in multiple tabs. So if I wanted to have a load of videos open ready to watch later, or listen to or whatever, I could just switch it back to iTunes and it would continue controlling iTunes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's pretty neat. I mean, I see it's on GitHub, so do you have to compile it yourself, or is there like an installer?
No, there's definitely an installer. I guess on the actual website, there's probably a download link. Yeah, there's a download link at the bottom of their actual website, which is beardedspice.github.io.
Okay.
There's a download link there. So yeah, you don't have to compile it yourself or anything. But I mean, this is the perfect kind of thing for open source, because if I want to add a site that they don't have, I can just go in, submit it, and they'll add it to the app.
Yeah, that sounds really neat. I have to check that out. I mean, I could use that. I could definitely find some uses for that.
Yeah, this was one I remember somebody telling me about it, and I was a bit skeptical because I'd tried a couple of apps like this before, and I'm like, there's no way this is going to work well. But I've been using it for probably 6 months or so, and it's been fantastic.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing that's probably could very easily break, I suppose, with OS updates. But so far, so good.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I kind of looked into the code a little bit, and it's just monitoring applications and just matching on the apps, and then because they're websites, it's just running JavaScript when you do like play, pause, and rewind and stuff. So,
oh, I see.
And unless something major changes on the actual website, it should continue to work for quite a while.
Yeah, no, that is good, because then that makes a lot of sense, since it's dealing mainly with websites. That makes it a little easier, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely.
Huh. Well, what time of day are you best in terms of doing your work? I mean, I'm kind of a morning person myself.
Yeah, I definitely, as I say, I probably need a good 20 minutes or so after I get to work to wake up. But I use that time to check on issues and emails and anything else that might have popped up. But generally, I'm kind of fine. I don't really have a specific time that I'm much better doing work with. I mean, obviously, as it gets closer to 5 o'clock, I get a little bit tired or whatever. But yeah, generally, I don't have a specific time of day that seems to work better for me.
Yeah, I think morning works well for me for a couple of reasons. Well, I don't know. First of all, it's the time I picked, right? I mean, you can be good at working late at night, or you can be good at working in the morning, but I don't think many people can handle doing both and burning it at both ends. But so it's just kind of the time I picked, I suppose. And in a way, it's kind of helps me because if I'm working early in the morning and I've got to get out the door to get down to the train station at a particular time, it gives me sort of an artificial deadline. It's like, well, get this much done before you walk out the door. So it gives me kind of and it's usually about, I don't know, what, an hour and a half, 2 hours that I have to get stuff done. So I've got a nice little block, and I just kind of crank away and hopefully get whatever I'm working on done enough by the time I walk out the door and walk downtown, which is my podcast time, is my walk down to the train station, which is about a mile. So it takes a little time, and that gives me a little podcast time, and that's a nice little break. And then I can I'll sit at the Starbucks across from the train station. And that's another little chunk where I'll usually have maybe 15 minutes to a half an hour to do a little bit more of this or that. And if I really start getting into something, I'll just skip my train and take a later one and just keep working in the train station for a little while. So I have a very strange morning routine. It's very flexible. The good thing is that trains come about every 20 minutes, so it's easy for me to do that and not be like super late to get downtown.
So one of the other things we mentioned here, kind of the difference between, obviously, you do native development and I do, web development for the most part.
Yeah, right.
I mean, aside from the obvious ones for you, obviously you need to be using Xcode. Like, you don't have a choice in that matter.
Right.
But I guess in general, that's kind of the one big tool for doing native, I guess, plus the simulator, presumably.
Yeah, which is all kind of built in. I mean, I guess it's a separate app technically, but it's invoked from Xcode. But that's the main tool. I mean, there are other things I use. Sometimes I'll fiddle around in Code Runner, which is a pretty nice Mac app. It supports a bunch of different languages, including Swift and Objective-C and things like that. And I do that sometimes because sometimes it can be easier on occasion to just create a little chunk of code and see how it works than to kind of be fiddling around in your main project. It's a little faster, a little easier to iterate on it and come up with something. So I'll use that sometimes. I use Dash, which is a documentation app for viewing all sorts of documentation. So I'll have in there, I've got all the, all the Apple documentation in there. It tends to be run faster than running it through Xcode, which is why I do that. But you can also put everything in there from, JavaScript to Python to even cheat sheets for Markdown. It's really, documentation for any computery related thing. So that's a really great app, and it has a version that's on iOS as well. So that's available really wherever I am. But there's not a lot more than that. I mean, obviously Safari, because on Stack Overflow or other things, looking up information that way. But Xcode is 99% of it, really.
Yeah, I should say Dash is great just to have all those the docs, especially for offline as well. Right. If you haven't got Wi-Fi or something. But yeah, it's really nice. Like I've set up a keyboard shortcut just to bring it up. I can't remember what they call it. I think they call it like visor mode or something, where it's not really a proper window. It's kind of pops down from the top, and I can just hide it and show it with the keyboard shortcut.
I haven't tried that. I should check that out.
I mean, I'm kind of running out of keyboard shortcuts because, I have one for Terminal and a couple of other things, but I managed to squeeze one more in for Dash. I mean, for me, most of my day is in PHP Storm, which is an IDE from JetBrains. They have a few different IDEs. They're all based on the same core software, but for PHP Storm, it has PHP specific stuff, but they also have one for like JavaScript and which is called WebStorm, but those features can also be added to PHP Storm. So it's kind of, an all-round IDE, which is really nice, especially for PHP stuff. I've always got a terminal window open because I'm running, Webpack and Gulp scripts and, things for compiling templates and deploying the site and pushing to GitHub and, all that kind of stuff. So, terminal, well, I say terminal, I use iTerm, which is a terminal replacement. But, for me, I mean, that's open all the time. And obviously that's got a keyboard shortcut so I can, open it, a hotkey so I can open it immediately. And then I have obviously Chrome open, because obviously I need that for actually looking at what I'm doing.
Right.
And then obviously I have Slack and Tweetbot as well. That's mostly what I'm using kind of every day. It's as I say, it's mostly kind of PHP Storm, Terminal, and Chrome. And I'll open up Sublime Text every now and again if I need to just do some kind of quick editing, because PHP Storm can be a little bit slow for that kind of stuff, just because of the amount of work it's doing to try and find class definitions and things like that.
Yeah. Do you work mainly on projects on your own, or do you end up having to working with other teams of people?
Yeah, so there's so at my job there's we've got 5 developers, and we've got kind of probably 4 or 5 main projects that we work on, plus client work that comes in and stuff like that.
Right.
But the main projects, we can all be jumping around between each of those projects at any given time. So we obviously those are all on GitHub, and that's pretty much how we manage issues and stuff like that. So issues and pull requests are all on GitHub.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, generally we're not working with each other on one specific feature. That
Right.
will generally just be one of us will do that. Then we'll push that to GitHub, and somebody else will check it over, and we'll have a conversation about it. But yeah, using Git and kind of the branching model, where we branch off to create new features is, works really well for us.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's funny because I've used GitHub in the past for the development work that I do, but only really as a way to synchronize projects across multiple Macs. It wasn't until I started writing at Mac Stories that I started dealing with, commits and pulls and all that stuff and branching, because that's where it actually became collaborative. When you're working on your own, you don't really need any of that stuff.
Yeah, Git is an entirely different thing if you're just working by yourself.
I know. I actually had more to learn than I realized when we started using it for writing, and I still feel like not entirely comfortable with it. But our needs when you're dealing with text documents are pretty basic, so it's not too bad. A couple of other things that I use sometimes are Patterns, which is a nice Mac app that's on the App Store. Patterns is just a kind of a regex tool, and you can test out. Basically, you can create regular expressions and then test them out in it, and it'll show you how the matching is working. So it's a good way if you're dealing with strings and stuff to kind of test out stuff before you put it in your project.
Oh my god, how did I not know about this?
You should check it out. I'm sure you do a fair amount of that kind of stuff, right?
Well, yeah, if I have to do regex, I normally just kind of sit under my desk and cry. But yeah, I do have to do it every now and again.
Well, that's why I got this app, because I'm still trying to figure out how regex works. It's too complicated for me. But what's nice is, as you can see, it's really just 2 panes. You can create your regular expression at the top, and then you can it'll show you how it works, and it has different languages that it supports. It's got PHP and Python and Perl and Ruby and JavaScript and Objective-C, all these things in here. So it's pretty nice. I use Paint Code and Sketch a little bit too. That's more for assets in an app. Those are 2 things I need to really drill down on and learn a little better, though. They're both really powerful tools. Sketch is really just a vector drawing app, and Paint Code lets you turn vectors into actual code. So you're creating images with your code. So something I'd definitely like to do a little more of, just for efficiency's sake.
Sure, yeah. I don't really think there's any other apps that I use for working, but one that I've really like is Renamer. This has been around for years now, but the newest version 5, is really great for renaming files.
Are you talking like there's one? It's called Better App Renamer, or are you talking something else? I'm thinking of a Better Finder Rename 10. That's another app that's like that. It sounds like.
But yeah, Renamer is one that I've been using for. I think I've used version 3 or possibly an early version of 4. But yeah, the latest version is great. I mean, it's got all the stuff you'd expect, find and replace, and you can do metadata stuff for music and photos. It's really powerful. You can kind of set up workflows for doing specific things. You can kind of chain all the renaming stuff together.
Okay, so do you do that mainly for things like photos and music and that kind of thing, or do you also use it for some of your work projects?
No, I don't really use it for anything for work. It's mostly just kind of personal stuff, but it's, as you say, like photos and music and things that kind of need batch renaming. It's just a really powerful app for doing stuff like that.
Oh, all right. Have you here's one. Have you tried Rocket yet, which is a way to do emoji on your Mac, the way it works in Slack, but anywhere in any text field, you just hit, colon and then the name and it'll pop up. It's a menu bar app.
Yeah, I have seen this. I didn't download it because I have an Alfred workflow for emojis. I say it's a workflow. It's actually using their snippet functionality. So I can just type S and a space and then I can search for the emoji. So that's generally how I do it. Just because I'm not very good at remembering the names of the emojis, so the search is kind of useful to me. But yeah, the one that you're describing where you just kind of do the colon and start typing it looks really nice.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool app. It's still a little rough around the edges, but it's been updated quite a few times. And there's it's free, but then there's also, if you pay, you can then do custom GIFs and images and custom emoji. I realize that custom emoji are a thing on Slack. I have no idea what that's all about. I've never used any of that. I don't know. Maybe I'm too all business on Slack these days.
Yeah, the custom emoji is. Are they? I guess they're not really emoji. They're just like custom icons, basically.
Right.
But like we have one for Devs Do Design, our pub hack team. We can type colon DDD, and it will do the little Devs Do Design logo in Slack.
Okay.
Which it's kind of just an in joke when one of the developers tries to one of us tries to come up with a design for something.
Right.
Somebody else laughs at it. So yeah, they're basically just like custom little icons, but you can add, animated emoji, I guess, just GIFs, but they'll show up as emoji in Slack.
Yeah, I wonder what it is about developers and design. It seems like that it's an impossibility there are not very many developers that are even half decent at design.
No, there are a few, but yeah, not many. I don't know what it is. I think I just look at a problem and I don't care what it looks like. I just want to solve the problem. I don't think I can get past that mindset.
Yeah, no. Even when I think I've done a really good job, I'll show it to Frank, and he's like, "Oh, okay.
Yeah,
here's something better. Here's something much better."
Yeah, that's happened to me a few times. I'm pretty happy with what I've done, and you show it to a designer, and then you're like, "Oh, never mind, I tried."
Yeah, it's like, "Oh, yeah, that is a lot nicer. Mine looks like a 2-year-old did it."
So, was there anything else you wanted to mention about that? I think we've probably covered most of it.
Yeah, I think so.
Cool. Should we wrap it up for this week? Unless there was anything else?
Yeah, I think we should. I mean, we should talk a little bit. I guess we should talk about schedule, because we're actually recording this a little early, but we're going to put it out in the normal schedule, so everybody will hear this in the normal slot. 8 days from when we're recording. We're doing that because I'm going off to California for a few days, drop my son off at college next weekend, and so it's just easier to talk today. And we've got a couple, I don't know. We've got some things coming up. I'm going to be on Mac Power Users. By the time this comes out, that episode should be released. And I talk a lot about origin stories of both doing development as well as writing at Mac stories and the tools I use, that sort of thing. And talk a little bit about how people can get started with programming. And I guess that's about it. Is there anything else, Rob, that we should mention to people?
No, I think that's pretty much it. So people are going to get double John Voorhees this week.
Yeah, it's going to be all John, all John all the time, I guess.
Worldwide 24/7.
Right. Meanwhile, I'll just be, going through California, I guess. I don't know.
Well, enjoy your few days in California. I'm sure that'll be nice.
Yeah, it should be nice.
And we'll be back in a couple of weeks.
All right.
Speak to you later.